Hi and welcome to this week's Grid Girl with me, Helena, and we are following the F1 70th anniversary Grand Prix from Silverstone again this weekend. Lots to bring you in terms of news, including a big update on the Racing Point protest, but lots to bring you throughout this week's episode, so enjoy. So this week there's been quite a bit of news, so I will start with the short bit and then we will get on to Racing Point, which was the big news of the week. So Williams announced this week that they will be partnering with Umbro as their partners going forward to help them with the kind of cash problems they're having in the team, I think, from what I could gather from the situation. So I'm delighted to hear that. It's nice to see that we're still seeing Williams in the paddock. We're not losing a historical team, historical part of F1, and we're not going to lose George or Nicholas, so that's great. In terms of contract news, we saw Valtteri Bottas sign a new deal with Mercedes for another year. Interesting that it's only 1 year. I think none of them have really decided what they want to do yet. I think a lot of it will decide on whether Toto is staying permanently, but we shall see going forward. Hamilton has said that he doesn't feel like it's the right time at the moment to be discussing money and contracts when there's lots of other stuff going on in the world, so we can kind of understand that. We also had Niko Hulkenberg back this week, much to the delight of every F1 fan going. Unfortunately, that did mean Sergio Perez tested positive again, despite following his quarantine ruling. He was tested again on the Friday, but unfortunately brought back another positive test, which meant he could not race again this weekend. Whether he'll be racing in Barcelona, we're still not sure. If he isn't, then it looks like Nico will be staying in the seat for now. So the biggest story by far in the paddock this week was over the FIA ruling that Racing Point were illegally copying Mercedes brake ducts. Now, Racing Point have been deducted 15 championship points and have been fined €400,000 for this. Now, rivals have questioned whether Mercedes were fully compliant with the rules over the parts. Now, there was a change in the ruling last year that meant that brake ducts actually became a listed part rather than a non-listed part. So listed parts are parts that the constructors have to make themselves. Now, over the weekend, we had teams basically now appealing the decision of the FIA. So Racing Point are appealing it because they're not happy. They believe that everything they've done is legal. They originally had drawings off Mercedes in 2018 when it was legal to do so. The brake ducts are believed to have been copied and reverse engineered, but also they had bought some parts during 2019 before the parts were listed, and basically what they are saying is that the FIA ruling basically stated previously that anything that was bought prior to pretty much like the 1st of January effectively of 2020 was intellectual property of whatever team, and basically the slate was wiped clean. So Racing Point have basically strenuously denied that they've actually done anything wrong, and a lot of the FIA ruling basically says they haven't done anything wrong, but they have done wrong. So it's this bit of confusion really over what has been going on. Are they doing wrong? Is it legal? Was it legal, or was it legal now? Or it's all up in the air. Now Lawrence Stroll has come out and been very critical of what's been said and has been very defensive about the impact it's had on his character and the way he does business and how he doesn't agree with this. Now, on the other side, you have quite a few of the other teams who have put in a protest, basically saying the ruling from the FIA was not harsh enough. Now, we currently have at the moment, initially it was McLaren, Ferrari and Renault who put in another protest basically saying they're not happy with the outcome. Now, McLaren have dropped out of this. It is just Ferrari and Renault who are now protesting this, basically saying that actually, we feel they should be punished more. It is illegal what they're doing. There's clearly been some transfer of information that shouldn't have happened, and they need to be punished for it, or the parts need removing off the car. Now, a lot of the pundits on TV, the ex-racing drivers have been saying, look, you can't unlearn that material. So once you have that knowledge, you can't unlearn that knowledge, and that's why they've been allowed to remain on the car. But that is also why they've been docked so many championship points. Now, Lawrence Stroll, put out this statement that you'll see now.
They are dragging our name through the mud, and I will not stand by nor accept this. I intend to take all necessary actions to prove our innocence. My team and I have worked tirelessly to deliver the competitive car we have on the grid. And I am truly upset to see the poor sportsmanship of our competitors. I understand that the situation in which the FIA finds itself is difficult and complicated for many reasons. But I also respect and appreciate their efforts to try and find a solution in the best interest of the sport. In closing, we did absolutely nothing wrong. We stayed within the rules, and we will demonstrate and prove that through the appeal process. Thank you for your time.
Now, quite a few of the other team principals have stayed quiet regarding this. However, this week, Christian Horner did state in an interview, he said, I'm sure the questions will get asked because if the team in question are guilty of receiving, surely the team that has provided has also been in breach of regulations, but that's something that the FIA needs to deal with. Now, that is obviously referring to Mercedes, because Mercedes have basically said, yeah, we gave them CAD drawings in 2018, no biggie, it was legal then, not an issue. Toto Wolff has been trying to mediate the issue with a lot of the teams, because he's basically saying, well, guys, let's sort it out between us, let's stop these appeals, like it's wasting time, it's wasting energy, like what is the point, come on, move on. He said, and he even stated in an interview this week saying, the rule came into place for the 2020 season, so you were allowed to supply drawings and data. In 2018 and 2019 it was permitted. Now we also had Otmar Zafnar basically saying that the decision's wrong, it is wrong. I think a lot of people agree with that. And that actually they haven't done anything wrong, it's not illegal, basically the same as what Lawrence Stroll has said. He's been very vocal and just said, look, other teams are doing this. If you look at the likes of Red Bull and AlphaTauri, Ferrari and Alfa Romeo, Ferrari and Haas to a certain extent, when you buy certain components, they have to fit the car that you are building. Also, if you are receiving CAD drawings from other teams, which is basically last year's hand-me-down, that's fine, but your parts need to fit that. So you either need to find a way of tracing that, or a way of buying those parts. Now, if they're listed, you can't buy those parts, so you've got to do it off drawings alone, reverse engineer it, and that's what Otmar has basically said their Racing Point have been doing. But I'm sure we'll hear much, much more on this issue over the coming weeks. So what an exciting qualifying we saw on Saturday. Definitely a surprising result after last week, So we saw Bottas take the lead, which was no surprise really, as Silverstone is a strong track for him. We then saw Lewis in second, again not surprised that Mercedes were dominating the qualifying. However, I think the biggest highlight of everybody's weekend was Niko Hulkenberg qualifying third. A massive achievement for Nico, especially after he has had 1 week practicing and 1 qualifying in the Racing Point car, so great to see him back on top. Definitely catching a few eyes potentially for a seat next season. As we know, he's not currently racing within F1 under a contract. He is kind of pursuing coming back at some point, so hopefully this will be a step in the right direction for him. We also saw a few ups and downs for some of the other teams. So the Ferraris had a slightly better qualifying, but still not really great. I think the performance we've seen from them over the season hasn't been fantastic, and those Ferrari power units are not doing well in any of the cars, as we saw. Alfa Romeo right at the back of the grid. Haas didn't do particularly well. So we shall see with that, see if there's any progression throughout the season. Daniel Ricciardo did have a great result, however, for Renault, qualifying in P5. So that was a good result for him. However, Ocon didn't make it to Q3. So a bit of a mixed bag for the Renault team, but I think some of that potentially could be down to, Ocon's inexperience, and he has been struggling with the car quite a bit over the past few weeks, so potentially could be to do with that. Gasly had a fantastic performance, so fantastic for Pierre, saw him up in P6, actually ahead of his replacement at Red Bull, Alex Albon, who qualified P7. Verstappen decided that he would qualify on the hard tyres. He was the only driver to do this, kind of splitting his strategy for the race on Sunday. Obviously, when you get to Q3, you don't get a tyre choice once you've qualified, because your tyres are the ones you race on. Once you get anything past P10, you get to choose your tyres. So he was the only one in the top 10 that chose this route of tyre option for the race on Sunday. McLaren didn't have as good a qualifying as they have done in previous weeks, especially Norris only qualifying in P10. Carlos Sainz didn't even make it into Quali 3, which is quite a surprise because both McLarens have been doing very well recently, so it was a bit of a shock in terms of form for them. And then in terms of penalties, we did see Ocon actually get a 3-pace grid penalty for impeding George Russell in Williams. Not a surprise really, because it was quite a clear-cut impeding. This week's race was, would I say, less dramatic than last week? Potentially, in terms of we didn't have as many tyres exploding. However, for the compound of tyres that we've had from Pirelli, meant that pretty much everyone, bar I think Charles Leclerc, did a 2-stop strategy. In some cases, some teams were having to do a 3-stop. I know the Williams were really struggling with their tyres this weekend. They had to do 3 stops. In terms of what went on in the race, so we saw Vettel have a spin in lap 1. Anyone who knows Vettel, if you follow any of the F1 memes out there, it's all about his spinning, so one for the meme makers out there. Kevin Magnussen got a 5-second penalty for his move on Latifi, where it was definitely an incident. He basically then took out Latifi, not a great move. Not a surprise though for Kevin Magnussen, as the Hasses do have a tendency to cause a few incidences on track, much to the disappointment of Gunther Steinberg. We saw Verstappen, as is mentioned before, with a really good choice on his pit stops. The pit stop strategy worked well for him, meaning he could overtake Hamilton and Bottas, and those tyres seemed to really last for him. meaning that, you know, Max actually ended up winning the race. So it was nice to see somebody other than a Mercedes on the top step, especially at Silverstone. So definitely a good one for Max. That now puts Max second in the championship, only to Lewis and just slightly ahead of Bottas. Leclerc failed. He fared better than kind of expected. So he got P4. Last week he was P3 if I remember rightly. So it was, you know, a little bit down, but better than he expected still. He seems to be making the car work for him. However, there has been a lot of controversy surrounding Vettel's radio message during the race, basically saying, you know what you did and I'm not happy about it. Which was quite a shock for Sebastian, really. We don't often hear these outbursts from him, especially over team radio. And I think this is really showing the discord in the relationship between Ferrari and Sebastian. Rumours have been going around that Charles seems to be getting the preferential treatment, which you can understand. He is now their number one driver. He is staying. However, Sebastian has kind of dropped hints that he's been treated differently within the team. He has lost all confidence in the car, which I'm not surprised, because if you look at the Ferrari engines up and down the paddock, so the Haas team, Alfa Romeo and Ferrari, none of them are doing well. So I'm not surprised that actually he feels that way. However, a better day for Alex Albon. So Alex Albon made waves, you know, right up the grid, you know, with a really good finishing. However, there were pictures from the beginning of the Grand Prix of Helmut Marko having a conversation with Pierre Gasly. Now, Red Bull have been very firm on the fact that they want to keep Albon. They've got no intention of switching the drivers. You know, Albon's their guy. If we roll back 12 months, the same thing was being said about Pierre. And Pierre's results weren't particularly better or worse than Alex's results that he's getting at the moment. However, you know, Christian Horner was there going, yeah, Pierre's got 100% backing from the team, we're not switching the drivers, we're not going to drop him, and 3 races later we saw that. So I'm very fearful for Alex Albon at the moment. I think he's an incredibly talented driver, but I do worry that he is in a position at Red Bull that Red Bull are not afraid to drop drivers. And Alex has been on the receiving end of that before as part of the Young Driver programme, so I think Alex needs to be quite wary at the moment. You know, results obviously we saw Verstappen first, Hamilton second, Bottas third. Bottas had a very, again, unlucky weekend with the tyres and a bit of a lack of pace. So, you know, hopefully going into next weekend we can see some more exciting changes in Barcelona. So thanks for watching, guys. If you are enjoying the coverage, please like and follow and share with anyone who enjoys a little bit of F1. And I look forward to seeing you guys next week where we catch up from the race in Barcelona.